Is it weird you can only see like the bottom half of the bow? I don't really know how to change that, so this is how we're gonna roll. I was sent a batch of like goodies from a couple of guys, and one of the guys sent me like some cool gear that he'd kind of developed, and I'll tag him here. I really appreciate that. I definitely don't expect it, but he sent me these cool little cigars. They're called Cro-Magnons, and the label's all sweet. They're like these little torpedo dudes. And then another person sent me this Sagamore Spirit Rye. So I'm going to give that a shot tonight. I've had a little bit of it, and it is very tasty. So never expected, always appreciated. Thank you very much for sending these to me. I very much appreciate it. That is super good. Wow. It tastes like the humidor smells. Like, I've always felt like cigars maybe don't quite taste, I don't know. He sent me a few, and I may have to buy a few more. Like, this is legit. This is super good. Try some of the Sagamore Spirit here. Yeah. It's kind of just a general note. I feel like ryes are always good. They're always so much more interesting than kind of, you know, non-ryes. I gotta be honest, I don't know that much about this stuff. I just know that I like this one, and I like these, and I like this right here. I know that you can only see the bottom half of the bow. I apologize. If I put the camera really far away, then you can't hear me as well. So here's what we're looking at. Prime Nexus 4. The brand new Nexus series for Prime. If you watched any of the videos that I did last year on the different bows that I shot, the series that I did where I bought 5 bows, the Black 3 and the VXR were like my final 2. I had such a hard time deciding, and I said, you know what, I really want to shoot the Prime Black 5 and see about the stability and just see if that was going to kind of increase. And when I shot the 5, I was like, you know what, that's great, but instead I took the money and I spent it on other stuff rather than actually buying a 5. So this year the Nexus 4 was one of the first bows that I ordered because I knew they hadn't changed the design that much. I wanted to live with a Prime again. And I have no plans on donating and getting rid of these bows this year. Just a spoiler alert like I did last year. Maybe I have other plans with them. I don't know. We're going to see. So the Black 3 was a 33-inch axle to axle, and the Nexus 4 is a 34-inch axle to axle. I've hated the fact that like Matthews with the VXR 31.5, and then the V3 they're making it that much shorter. I'm like, come on! I want a longer bow. I don't mind taking, I've got a 15-inch stabilizer that I carry into the field. I don't mind having something that's a little bit longer for that increased stability, because 99.99% of the shots that I'm shooting are at home, on the driveway, on the range, enjoying that type of shooting. And this, the plan was that I was going to take this and be my hunter class bow this year for 3D. Because this year I wanted to take 3D more seriously. And so far, I'm doing a horrible job of actually doing that. Let's talk about the good for this bow. So far, the finish is absolutely top-notch. Like, the actual machining of the riser, of the limbs, of the limb pockets, the entire thing is so clean. Compared to the PSE that I got first, the Prime is in another category as far as the finish goes. And that's the end of the list of good things about this bow so far. I know it seems weird. I now have a bunch of neutral things after that, because there are things that I'm still trying to figure out, like, do I actually like this about this bow or not? The cams. We're going to start with the cams and draw cycle. The shims are like these big bearings, and you can actually see them on either side of the cam. That's what the shims are. They're not small little, you know, crappy 32nd of an inch things that come with the PSE. I was actually very pleasantly surprised with how easy it was to swap them out. So the way it comes stock, it comes with a number 2 and a number 2, which are the same size. And then you basically just unscrew one side of the axle once it's in a press, poke the axle out, and then just kind of lift the cam and everything, all the, you know, all the strings and cables and everything attached. You just kind of lift that out slightly, and you can manipulate those little shims to come out. They don't, like, if they fall on the floor, Like that's pretty good size. Like it's kind of a big piece. If it falls on the floor, you're going to actually be able to find it. And then with your actual paperwork, it comes with a secondary set of shims, which is a number 1 and a number 3, so that you can actually move these cams to one side or the other. Number 1 is thinner, number 3 is, you know, is a heavier cam. The problem is I've got these cams moved as far as they will go, and I'm still not getting the tear completely out. So I'm actually having to take my rest out of center shot. And the next phase is swapping the limbs around. So I'll actually have to take this entire assembly apart again. And then the way that they do, there's a slight variation in the weight of the limbs. To not get too complicated, basically one is a little bit thicker than the other one. I'm going to have to switch those to see if that will allow me to get the tear out. So basically the cams can't move quite far enough to really give me the flexibility that I need to get the bow to tune for my shot. Does that mean that I am a horrible archer? Maybe. Does it mean that my form is bad with the way I hold this bow? Maybe. But it's consistent across every bow that I've owned. I'm always shimming the cams to the left. Always. That's always what I do. And I guarantee you it's just the way that I hold the bow. That's how I can actually get the bow to tune correctly. So that's a bit of a problem for me, and it's a little bit of a pain in the ass because I'm literally having to take this thing apart multiple times to try to get this thing figured out, and now I'm going to have to actually do a limb change, which is, yeah, it's going to be inconvenient. The draw cycle, these are 70-pound limbs, and I've got 60-pound limbs at the shop waiting for me that I have to go pick up. But the 70-pound limbs, it feels pretty stiff. Like it's a consistent draw all the way through. It doesn't dump you into the back wall super heavy, but it's pretty stiff. And it's not stiff the way the PSE was stiff, where it was stiff for like a week. I've been shooting this now for maybe 2 weeks, and there was a little bit of break-in where it felt almost kind of brittle on the front end, but now it's kind of, you know, coming into its own. It's still kind of stiff. The back wall is super firm. Like it's a really, really firm back wall. The Matthews and that kind of back wall is what I'm really used to and what I like, where there's a little bit of give that you feel like you're pulling into. Not as squishy as like a Hoyt, and maybe not even the new Hoyt. I'm talking like the RX3 that I had last year. Those are pretty squishy back wall. This is not that way. Like once you pull into this back wall, that sucker is there and you're pulling through your release. You're not getting any more rear movement out of this thing. It is where it is. The draw stops that you can adjust, you can actually decrease your let off or increase your let off based on where you adjust the draw stops. And what I have found, when I'm increasing the amount of weight that I'm holding once I'm at full draw, the bow actually gets quieter as well. So if that's a problem that you're having with the Nexus, try accelerating those a little bit more. So right now I've got this on number 2. And I've got the actual draw stop set between 2 and 3. So I've sped these cams up a little bit. I think that's what it is. To where basically it's not dumping me as deep into the back wall. It's stopping me short, which is increasing that hold in the back wall. The reason that's kind of a neutral for me is the draw stops are on basically a track, and you can adjust them kind of to wherever you want. But the problem is, I want them to be exactly the same. Like I want them to be in between number 2 and number 3 exactly the same amount. But because it's just a track that it slides on, I don't know that it's exactly perfect, which kind of freaks me out because it makes me go, is this actually in tune? Like, is this actually perfect? I can put it on the draw board. What is happening? Oh, there's a horse. That freaked me out. One of my horses moved up behind some stuff that I can't see, and it was like eating off the ground, and this is irrelevant to this conversation. I think the grip was one of the things last year that sold me on the Black 3 so much. I love the grip, the shelf angle and everything. It just seemed to so naturally fit the way I want to hold a bow. The new grip that they put on here, the kind of nano NASA rubber plastic thing, is it really like that magic of a material? It feels like a plasticky rubber, let's be honest. The issue that when you add something like this to the riser is it creates a point where basically it transitions from the rubbery plastic NASA Magic grip back to just the aluminum shelf. And there's always this little point that just over time kind of rubs on my hand. This is such a minor complaint. The increase that you get in the little bit of raised grip that they have down here, maybe it's worth the trade-off, but the truth is I like the grip on the Black 3 a little bit more than I like this one. I don't care if there's this kind of liner, the magic liner on here. I think it looks cool. I like that they did this kind of section down the middle right here that kind of looks like a river for some reason, and maybe I'll mess with taking it off and see how it shoots that way. Overall, it's still super solid. Like, it's still probably one of my favorite grips just because the angle of the shelf, it just seems to hold my hand exactly the way I want to naturally hold a bow. Speaking of the hold, one of the things that I thought right out of the gate was going to be better, lower center of gravity, because the shelf is not actually centered on the bow. There is a whole lot more riser below the shelf than there is above. So there's more weight down below. And I thought, okay, that lower center of gravity and then this dual cam thing that they've got is going to make this thing rock solid. But for me, I haven't gotten my bars exactly dialed in how I want them. And the truth is the hold for me right out of the gate is not as good as my VXR, as the V3, or even as the PSE. Like, probably the PSE and this one are kind of close together. I don't think I've gotten the bars dialed in exactly how I want them for this bow, and I'm starting to kind of experiment more. But I was really hoping that kind of right out of the gate, I was going to have a much more rock solid hold, and I don't have it, and it seems odd to me that I wouldn't. But the VXR, rock freaking solid. And it's the opposite. It's got tons more like the riser that above, it just seems like it's so much more top weighted than lower. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it's like I said, the VXR and the V3 by far right out of the gate, easiest ones to get the hold, where my pin float, it just feels like it's 0. And then as I'm pulling through the shot, it feels like it just kind of stays there. Do I think I can get there with this? Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. Am I going to keep trying? Absolutely. Going to keep trying. So those were like all the neutral things about this. The only bad thing that I've noticed so far is it's pretty damn loud. Like, out of all the bows that I've been shooting, for some reason, it's probably just all this stuff moving around. It's loud. Like, I definitely accelerating the draw stops forward so that I'm not going as deep into the valley has quieted it down a lot. And somebody sent me this kind of upgraded, let's see, it's called sand trap technology, which is like a string dampener. I probably actually have it a little bit too far back. It's quieted down a little bit, but I'm probably going to put some dampeners on here. I'm going to do a few other things. It's loud. It's loud. And then the actual follow through, you're feeling the impact in the grip. One thing I've liked doing is putting my little AirPods in where the noise canceling thing is, and just closing my eyes and shooting at like 20 yards one time, aiming on the target, and really getting to feel how the bow actually feels upon impact. And this one definitely gives you some impact in your hand. It's not uncomfortable. It's just like the V3 has basically nothing. And then this is, relatively substantial. The PSE is somewhere in between. But overall, I mean, damn solid bow. And to me, it's one of the most attractive bows that's being made. Like, I love the way the riser looks, the color schemes that they're offering, super cool. Is that relevant for you? For hunting? Probably not. Oh, good. This was kind of just an initial exploration into this bow. Like, I just wanted to go through kind of some basics of what I'm learning after the first, 2 weeks of having it. Which is another thing. All the bow companies this year are way behind in shipping. I'm still waiting on a bow that they're saying is 3 weeks back still. And it's like almost the beginning of May. I probably shouldn't be giving them crap because, there was the thing that we had last year, that the sickness thing that probably inhibited a lot of this, so I'm giving everybody a little bit of grace, obviously. But I wanted to be shooting these things like 3 months ago. I'm going to do a lot of the same tests that I did last year for the bows that I've got coming in. The confidence that I have when I know I'm taking the best tool that I can into the woods and hunting is so important. I love doing these bow reviews. I love taking them apart. I love learning all the little intricacies and things about each and every bow so that I can discover more about what I love about the sport, what I love about the technology that's being poured into these bows. I will always continue to encourage innovation in our sport. And that is one of the reasons that the Prime Nexus 4 was such an exciting bow for me, just like the Black 3 was last year. Just really interesting, cool technology that I don't think I have figured out how to take full advantage of yet. So that was my initial thoughts on the Prime Nexus 4. Thank you for watching. I'm Brandon McDonald.